Hi, everyone. Good evening. My name is Priya Natarajan. I'm an astrophysicist, and I'm the director of the Franke program in Science and the Humanities. As you can all see, we are in for an amazing treat this evening. And it is due to the generosity of our benefactors, Mr. and Mrs. Richard and Barbara Franke, that bring you this incredible event today, an olive tasting presentation and a curated dinner by Yale Hospitality. But I'll tell you a little bit more about our incredible host, and it's a real pleasure to have you with us today. So it is my distinct pleasure to invite today Tassos Kyriakides, a native of Cyprus, who completed his BSc as a Fulbright scholar at UCLA. He studied biochemistry. He sort of epitomizes sort of interdisciplinary, collaborative, and unique expertise gleaned from mastery of multiple disciplines. He received his PhD at the Yale School of Public Health in epidemiology and infectious diseases. He is now an assistant professor at the Yale School of Public Health, where he helps design and guide and collaborates on a number of clinical research projects. He consults on methodology, data processes and management, and a statistical analysis for many research protocols. And he serves as a very active mentor for researchers at international AIDS conferences. He mentors graduate students and is a statistical reviewer for many high-impact journals. So basically, he's a top-notch researcher working at the Yale School of Public Health. He is a co-proponent for the establishment of a program or a center at Yale at the School of Public Health that will focus, now comes the interesting bit, on the olive tree and its products and their effects on human and planetary health. He's a certified olive oil sommelier and runs the Yale Oleotheca at the Schwarzman Center and has participated in several olive oil-related activities on campus in partnership with Yale Hospitality. He frequently gives talks on the health benefits of olive oil. He is the principal investigator of a research project to assess the benefits of table olives on cardiovascular markers amongst college students, and he's a co-investigator on 2 research studies assessing the benefits of olive oil on Alzheimer's disease. He's a Legacy Circle member of the Massaro Community Farm in Woodbridge, Connecticut, and the immediate past president of the Association of Yale Alumni in Public Health Board. He's affiliated also, understandably, with the Yale Hellenic Studies program and is a faculty fellow at Saybrook College. So he has a very long, storied resume, but I think I will stop here. He has many, many awards, unique recognition for the real range of things he does. So a lot of his work has also been at with the veterans, and he's been involved in many of the pivotal trials for HIV/AIDS treatment, PTSD, and his capacity as the director of the Department of Veterans Affairs Cooperative Studies program. He currently coordinates and facilitates activities in 5 ongoing clinical trials and a lung precision oncology program. So it is my absolute pleasure to invite Tassos to take it away and take us on the sensual journey of olive oil and amazing food. And I want to thank many people to make this possible. As you can see, we have a tasting area, and then we have followed by a really incredible dinner that will be served on the other side. And lest I forget, without Dr. Ty Camp, this would not be possible. So let's give her a shout out. Ty, this is for you. Woo! Also, there were a lot of people. Thank you so much, Ty, for helping pull this unique event together. So I also want to thank many people at Yale Hospitality who really helped make this possible, collaborating with Tassos. Rachel Myjack, who put in many, many hours and who has remarkable attention to detail, has made this entire event such an incredibly beautiful setting for us. Julie Carillon, Jeremy Hume, Patrick Brown are the chefs. Jean-Michel Monge, Jennifer Gorig, Genesis Ann Weaver, Julian Monge, Kyrie Bolden are people that we all want to thank before we have our tasting and our meal today. Thank you so much for everything that you've done to make this possible. And without further ado, let me just hand over to Tassos. Thank you, Tassos, once again. I'm really grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Let's see, I turned this on. I have 2 mics. Can you hear me? Okay, good. Well, thank you for the warm introduction and the hospitality here. And thanks to Ty, I'm here. And I have to say, this is one of many events that I'm doing at Yale, but this is the first one at a center like this. I usually do it at the Oligoteca, as it was mentioned, at the Well in the Schwarzman Center. And tomorrow I have 100 students doing the same thing, not dinner, just the tasting and some snacks at the end. And this is an effort that started in 2018. As you can tell, I'm sort of all over the place, but I have to say this is my favorite job, even though it's not paid. And this is the best kind. What I poured in front of you, there's 4 oils. We're going to go through the tasting. Ideally, this kind of thing happens early in the morning when your 10,000 taste buds are not tired, because right now they are tired. So maybe we'll utilize maybe 2,000 of them. There's water and there's apples to cleanse your palate between the tastings. And then we'll have, I'll throw in a couple of things that was mentioned. We're trying to set up this entity here that looks at the olive tree, its products, and the impact they have on human health, but also planetary health. And I'll be talking about these things as we go along. I always find it more, when you do this kind of events, I grew up eating and talking about everything you can imagine. So I associate food with making that connection. So hopefully when you walk away tonight from here, you'll remember some things. And I haven't tested the hypothesis, but I think when you're eating and enjoying something, whatever somebody's throwing at you will stick. So try that at home. Again, so we have 4 oils. 3 of them, 1 of them is defective. And I always do that so you can get a sense of what a defective oil is. And I would bet if you go to your nearest grocery store and picked up something from the shelf, it will taste like this. And you're going to say, oh, that's olive oil. No, that's not olive oil. The other 3, 2 of them are one Italian, one Spanish. The Greek one, I managed to get this year's harvest. So the Mediterranean starts harvesting sometime in September, October, but by the time it hits the market here, it's usually February, March. But this company, they're based out of Virginia. The groves are in Sparta. They ship their oil and they bottle it here. So I called them. I said, I need 2 liters. Can you send it? OK. So they send it. The others are 2023 harvest because I was actually in Florence last week. And I went around all the people I know. They said, we're not done yet. I cannot give you oil. Because I was going to bring some. But those are companies that I've worked with before and I've used their oils. They hold for a long time. So I think I have some slides of the groves that these olives olive oil is coming from. So olive oil by definition is a fruit. The olive is a fruit. So therefore, this is a fruit juice. There's nothing that touches it as it comes out of the mill. So you put the olives, mechanical means temperature below 27 Celsius, 85, 86 Fahrenheit. That's one criterion for extra virgin olive oil. It has to be lower than that temperature. No chemicals used, and it has to meet certain criteria. The acidity, one of them, 0.8% free fatty acids. I don't know who here is a scientist. I'm trying not to use a lot of science, but if you want, I can talk forever about this. Because with a biochemistry major and all this knowledge, I really like talking about it. So that's the second criterion, 0.8% free fatty acid. When you take the bottle and you look at it, it says acidity, 0.8, 1%. It has to be below 0.8 to be extra virgin. California decided we're going to be more stringent. It's 0.5%. Then the last criterion is it has to have positive attributes. It has to smell good, and there's panels that test that. And it has to have no defects. That's the point of having a defective oil, so you can taste the defect, and then we'll taste the good oil. So we'll start with the first one, and I'm going to grab my cups so I can walk you through. So like I said, you taste the oils first thing in the morning, especially if you're on a panel or you're training, because your palate is clean, is not tired, and you can appreciate all the taste and the flavors and the smells. And you're not supposed to wear any cologne, fragrances, or drink coffee if you're on a panel. So when I did my training for a whole week, I was decaffeinated, and that was the worst part. So after tasting 200-300 olive oils in a week, you said, okay, I need coffee now in the morning. All right, so we'll do the first one. Who's turning the slides? Do I have a... There we go. All right, I can do that. So we're going to try, before we go here, we're going to taste the defective one. Take number 4, and the way we taste oil, these are cups that we use, but for professional tasting and panels and competitions, it's a glass cup. I should have brought one. Blue, but lately, actually science has shown, at University of Barcelona, Department of Physics showed that the red color, they put together a glass cup for tasting olive oil, neutralizes the color of the olive oil. Because if you're tasting an olive oil that you tasted before and you know it, you might be biased in scoring it. So what they did, they created this, it was blue, now it's red. And that relates to one of the myths, that green oil is better than yellow oil. That's a myth. So I've tasted amazing yellow oils and horrible green oils. So if anybody tells you, oh, green, better, no, not true. So one of what we're going to taste today is one of the best Spanish oils, and it's yellow. All right, so we take the cup, we put it in our palm, and we kind of twist it a little bit just to warm it up, because you want the aromas. Of course, this is the defective one. Nothing is going to come out, I can tell you that much. But practicing for number 1, number 2, and number 3. So as you warm it, it raises the temperature of the oil, because these bottles have been sitting, the good ones, have been sitting in 55 to 57 degree temperature. So I'm going to ask the question. Oh, thank you. So you see on your table, there's like a little, I don't want to call it quiz, it's like a conversation starter, to see how much we can sort of learn quickly about olive oil. So I'm going to, and don't be embarrassed, raise of hands, who has their olive oil next to their stove? Good. Oh, okay. Take it away from there. Heat is the enemy of olive oil. Light is the enemy of olive oil. Oxygen is the enemy of olive oil. The oil we're going to taste today, I made it bad. I bought it fresh. I kept it out in the sun, open lid. 3 hours later, it stunk. So, and the bottles, if you look at the bottles, they are dark, not clear. Please, no plastic. Okay, so taste the defective one and tell me, or smell it, and tell me what it smells like and what it tastes like. Nothing bad's going to happen if you eat this oil, I promise you. Okay, I'm going to ask this question I should have asked before. Has anybody here done olive oil tasting? I know one has. Any wine tasting? Okay, so it's similar ideas. Okay, what do you sense here in this oil? Somebody said rancid, great. No fragrance, no positive attribute. Grease, okay. It's a little bit bitter, but it's not a pleasant bitter, right? So this oil has at least 2 defects. The rancidity, and it's fermented. Rancid, yeah. And if you keep it in your mouth a little bit longer, I don't know, not that I have ever tasted crayons, but that's what it tastes like. Or paint. Yes. Okay, there you go. So I can tell you half of the olive oil on shelves in some of the stores taste like this. And some of the restaurants in New Haven, I can tell you, and I try to tell them, don't put this oil in front of me. I know you're using better oil in your kitchen. Why are you putting this? It turns me off. Just use good olive oil. There's ways to do it. So this is a classic defect. Again, 2-3 hours in the sun, open lid, that's what you get. So cleanse your palate with water and with the apple, and we'll go to the good stuff. I should get, I'm going to use this as it's an extra, because I'm already sensing the bad stuff. So the first oil, just make sure. Yeah. Actually, this is the, let's follow the slide. So, no, actually we cannot follow the slide because that's a surprise oil at the end. Not reaching, I guess. Might not be reaching. Yeah. Anyway, this is going to be the surprise I have in my bag there. So we're going to taste the first one. Number one is a Moriolo. Skip one more. There we go. So Moriolo is one of the big varieties in Italy. It's used by itself as a monocultivar, just like wine, one grape, olive oil, monocultivar, one oil variety. But it's also used as a blend because it's very abundant, and sometimes people blend them, especially if you have a cultivar that's very spicy or very bitter. You want to tame it down, use Moriolo. Just out of curiosity, any guesses on how many varieties of olives we have? How many cultivars? Just take a wild guess. 400? 1,500? Oh, wow. 1,552, actually. Not every variety is used for olive oil. Some of them are used for table olives. But this one is one of the big ones in Italy. Moriolo, Lecchino, mostly up in the north. So this is from a little place in Tuscany, Montenero d'Orcia. Their oils are really, and I picked the monocultivar. I guess you could call me a purist. I go for the monocultivars. I don't like the blends unless it's an amazing blend. So this is one of the classic Tuscan varieties of olives. And again, the season begins sometime September, early October. So if you happen to be in that part of the world that time of year, do an olive grove, and you might be able to taste it coming out of the mill. So what we should be paying attention, in terms of when you taste an oil, parenthesis here, the previous one, if you recall, it felt very greasy, right? It had a very greasy aftertaste, and I still feel it on my lips. That's a defect. Good oil should be clean. When you take it, eat it, goes down, clean palate. Okay, so when we taste oil, that's one thing we look at. Is it greasy? Does it have an aftertaste that's strange? But first we smell it. So, and again, there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to what am I smelling. You might smell something different than I do. And it's okay. As long as you like the oil and it's a good oil, use it. And we'll learn a little bit about the pairing. And today, the dinner, one of the oils, the fourth one that I'm going to have you taste after, the chef used it in one of the plates. And I wanted to show you how it tastes, and you can pour more of it that I have on it, on the food, so you see how it pairs well with it. Again, a rule of thumb, what you usually use, or when the food you use red wine with, is the food that you would use for very robust oils. A very delicate oil would be lost on a steak, for example. So think of red wine, white wine, what would you use? Robust oil versus more delicate. So, The other thing is, again, where the oil is coming from. So if you tell me I'm going to put this great Tuscan oil on feta cheese, I'm going to say, that's a no. It's not because you're insulting me, but it doesn't work. Flip it, mozzarella cheese and a Cretan oil, not a good idea. So think of where it's coming from. And even within a country, the same variety will taste different, 30 miles away. So it's affected a lot by what is growing around it, the exposure to the sun, temperature, and all that. So, all right, so let's smell this Moriolo. The one thing, the fresher the oil, so you keep the oil down here midway. If you uncover the lid and you smell it, that's a very robust oil, very aromatic. Probably it's not going to happen with the first two, but the third one probably you'll be able to smell because it's this year's. So you smell it and think, what does it remind you? I mean, with food, you try to make a memory or recall a memory. Oh, that smells like this. And once you make that connection, you'll always remember, oh, this smells like this. So what do people smell? Leaves. Good. Herbs. And the other thing I have on your table, it's sort of a tasting note. So you remember, okay, this oil, I tasted this, I smelled this for yourself, and then you can taste it with different foods and see how it works. So, so the variety here is Moriolo. Again, if it was 24, it would have been even more robust and more powerful in smell. So to me, it's a little bit, the aroma is gone because it's October 23, but it's still there. Compared to the defective, you can smell something. You could tell it's something good. And what gives it the aroma, it's all the phenols that it has in it. So the half-life of phenols is about 6 months. So if you start with olive oil today that you harvested, in 6 months you're down by 50% of the phenols that gives all the aromas and the strength and the bitterness and the punginess and all that stuff, and the spiciness. So, and that's where the health benefits come in. The phenols is what gives the olive oil its benefit. So if we have an oil that was harvested this year and we measured 800 milligrams per kilogram, that's usually the average olive oil from 600 to 800. In 6 months, you're down to 300, 400. Another 6 months, you're down to 200. And that's important because the data shows that you gain the benefit health-wise from olive oil when you're at the 250 mark. No, above is more, is better. Minimum is 250. So, and the reason for that is olive oil is probably, if not the only one of the few natural products that has a health claim by the European Food Safety Authority that says olive oil that contains 5 milligrams of hydroxytyrosol, one of these phenols, or its derivatives, in 20 grams, about what you're consuming now, about a spoon or so, a tablespoon, that gives you the benefit against oxidation of your low density level protein. So that amount, and that amount is, you'll find it when you have about 250 milligrams per kilogram of the phenols. So that's sort of how we gauge when should you use the olive oil. So unlike wine, olive oil does not get better with time. It gets worse. So race to the bottom, consume it the sooner you can. So if a friend brings olive oil from Italy, don't let it sit there for 3 years to open it on a special occasion. Doesn't work. All right, so taste it. Taste this Moriolo. Woo. One thing if you want to get sort of that retronasal, because now you're engaging your tongue, you're engaging the back of your mouth, you want to get the retronasal, if you've done coconut oil pulling, try to do it with olive oil. It will bring it in the back of your throat, over your nose, and that's when you get all the aromas. Smooth, okay? What other sensation? Soft? Peppery? Yes? Peppery? Yes. So what you're tasting in terms of the spiciness and the bitterness are the polyphenols. Oleocanthal being one of them is the very important polyphenol, gives it that spiciness. And comes from the Greek word. I'm not going to be like the movie, everything comes from a Greek word. But oleocanthal means it's the oil's thorn. That's what the word means. So that bitterness is from that. Imagine if it was this year's, it would have been even more. So one difference from the previous one, cleanse. No greasiness, right? Nothing. Balanced. It's a little bit bitter, but a little bit spicy that stays for a little bit longer. That's another attribute we want in an olive oil. You don't want it too spicy but no bitterness. You don't want it too bitter and no spiciness. So oils that do well in competitions, but that's not how I gauge a good oil, are oils that are balanced. They're amazing, delicate oils, very mild, not a lot of spiciness, not a lot of bitterness. But this has both. The spiciness, I still feel it, a minute later. If it was this year's, it would have been even more. So the first thing that I tasted here was artichokes. Somebody taste artichoke?
Yes.
Yeah. So it's that bitterness, but it's pleasing. So artichoke dish, this is a great oil. Think of Tuscany, artichoke, greens, bitter greens. This would be a good oil with it. Yes? Oh, stripaccio. So the Italians are good. Any Italians here? Of Italian background? Okay, good. Any Spanish? Any Greeks besides me? Okay, good. So, we sort of live with this culture. Of course, the Italians are better at marketing, I have to admit. But the Greeks make the best bottles. They're known for they're winning all the competitions when it comes to design of bottles. But the word here, when you do you're stripping the oil, they call it stripaccio. It sounds much better in Italian, right? Stripaccio. What is it? Stripaccio. You're stripping, so they added the A-G-G-I-O. Yeah, so you pull it, and I mean, if you try that with the third oil, the fresh oil, you probably will cry if you manage to bring it over your retronasal. All right, so good oil, right? Okay. Yes?
Given that there is such a strong time thing, how come the olive oil is not labeled in time?
It does. They do say it. If you look at the bottles, it has an expiration date.
The expiration.
So there's a bunch of dates that go on an olive bottle, an olive oil bottle. So when you pick it up from the store, from the shelf, look at what it says. The good companies will say harvest date, press date, bottling date, expiration date. They even have a QR code so you can see what part of the grove it came from. So
when you are talking about the depreciation of the polyphenol,
yeah.
So that is from when?
From pressed. Yeah. So what happens, you press it, you let it sit. These are filtered oils. Now that's another not controversy. Unfiltered oil is, as it comes out fresh, you can consume it. If you consume it fast, it's fine. But if you look at unfiltered oil, there's small particles that you can actually see from the leaf or the skin of the olive or some water. So the moment you have those things, the chances of oxidation and therefore a defect go up. If you filter it, you minimize that. Therefore, your shelf life is longer. If you're at the olive mill and you fill your jug, hey, use it within a week, perfect. So this is a very traditional, good oil that has many uses. Again, think of the dishes that you consume in Tuscany, in that part of the country. This is what it goes with. But for me, on sort of artichoke, bitter greens, this with some lemon, really good. All right, cleanse your palate. We're number 2 now. Number 2 is our Spanish oil. And I'm going to shift it. Which one? Yeah. Go back 2. Oh, I got it all. Oh, that explains it. Okay. Oops. Now I turned it off completely. I think I shut this thing off. Maybe I shouldn't touch. So this one we're going to taste is from Andalusia. I'm trying to practice my languages too. All right. So, oops. Okay. So this place, very interesting. Has anybody been to Andalusia and Jaén? Okay. Have you seen the Sea of Olives? Yes. Which is a UNESCO heritage thing? 66 million olive trees. You drive for miles and all you see is this. For miles and miles. So this is in the heart of Andalusia. Castillo de Canena is one of the premier producers of olive oil. Interestingly, it's a brother and sister who run it now. The sister used to be the CEO for Coca-Cola. And then she decided, I'm done. I'm going into this. So they built a company with her brother, and amazing oils. They have their growth for the early harvest, and then they have their growth for later, because they have to also produce volume. So now we're talking about production. Any idea what country is the #1 producing country of olive oil in the world? Spain, yes. Usually people say Italy or Greece, but no. Spain produces 60% about of the world consumption or the world production. So last year, when their production was 50% down, price of olive oil went up. But that's why. They've invested in the 80s. They had a plan. We're going to be the #1 producing country. No matter what government was in place, they went ahead. This amazing oil. This oil is a classic Spanish picual. It's a very yellow oil, very different from the one that we tasted. And hopefully you can tell the difference. Again, this is, if you have it fresh, it's a very, very powerful oil. It's probably one of the most bitter and spicy oils you'll taste when it's fresh. So let's see what this smells like. Hopefully it's a different profile than the previous one. Okay. Okay. So what do you smell in this one? Fruity. I heard fruity here. What else? Lemony. Is it a sweet smell or a? No. Okay. Fruity, I heard here. Is it on the ripe end of fruit or the early? Early. Okay. I smell a little bit of grass in the back. So let's see when you taste it. It's not necessary that what you smell you will taste as well. It changes. Okay. This is more bitter than spicy, right? More bitter than spicy, even though the spiciness kicks in a little bit later, but it's not, yeah, a little bit later. So this is like a slow heat, and then it just goes up. But then it drops quickly. So feel free to drink the oil. Don't put it, nothing. You're getting your dose of good oil. So again, think of where does this grow? What would you pair it with, given that profile? Dry, very sunny. Yes. What would you put it on? What would you cook? I mean, in Jaén, in this part of the, it's sort of further inland, but there's,
Jamón.
Jamón, yes. Paella. Rice, it will do a good sort of contrast with the starch. On soup, a good, with, what's the, gazpacho, but what's the one they put the sausage, the Spanish sausage, that soup? Yes, the chorizo, and then you put this on top? Spicy. At the end, it comes in later. Yeah. All right. Yes, it is. You have to give it time, and it will evolve. All right. Where's my, okay. So we did the Moriolo, we did the Picual. Let's go to the 2024, September 8th or 9th they started. Number 3 is from one of my favorite groves. It's the most decorated Greek oil in the world right now. And it's been for 4 or 5 years. Interesting story. The father started this grove around their house, and it's 100 feet from this. I could not believe that they have a grove that close to the water. It's sandy. So what they do, they use this as their canary in the mine. The water, when they water it, it's on the trunks, because if you put it down there, the sand will absorb it right away. So they want the water to run into the roots. So when this is ready, they time when the rest of their groves are ready. So that's the first sign. So the father at some point said, I'm done, I'm tired, I want to retire. The 2 sons were here. They both had careers, one in business, one in education. They said, we cannot sell this. We'll take over. So they took over about 8 years ago. One brother spends half of the year there, and he is so meticulous. I went on a couple of occasions. I was there during the harvest. So a lot of these are hand-picked. So you walk with a crew, you collect, the crew behind you picks up the oils, put them in baskets, takes them to the mill. So within a radius of maybe 6 to 8 feet, if you step in that radius and there's any olives, he will take them and throw them away. Every single olive that goes in the mill from this grove is perfect. Because if you injure the fruit, it comes out in the oil. So it has to be clean of leaves as much as possible, of any little things that are not a fruit, but also you have to be careful not to injure, because the injury to the fruit, again, increases the risk of oxidation and fermentation. Yes, you don't want to do that. So this oil, this one is their premier one. It's called Zoe, or Zoe, means life. It's Galamon. Galamon, you've heard it, Kalamata olives. Galamon is not a very commonly used variety for olive oil. The predominant Greek variety is Koroneiki, which means the crown. It's about 60 to 70% of the Greek olive oil is from that variety, Koroneiki, which varies from part of the, depending on what part of the country you are, the same cultivar, but a little bit different depending on where it grows. This one is Galamon, which is very tricky to produce oil. It can be really off balance, meaning it's too bitter and no spiciness, or the other way around. So, but they've mastered this. This is the first one they put out, and you'll taste it, you'll smell it, and you tell me what you think. So let's do the same thing, warm it up a little bit. Yeah, I mean, this, so there's one way, an official way to tell sort of how robust an oil is, if you start coughing. So this one is going to make you cough. It's a 2-cough oil or a 3-cough oil. So what do you smell here? What do you smell? Basil, herby, sweet though. Yes? Has anybody ever tasted an olive from the tree? Okay. Don't you smell it? The bitterness of the olive? Yes. It's chlorophyll. It's pure chlorophyll.
I feel like freshly cut grass.
Yes, yes. And taste it. It's going to make you cough, I can tell you. So the spiciness hit you right away on this one. Everybody's coughing. Yes. So the polyphenols, this one, This exact one last year, they counted, it was 1,900 milligrams per kilogram polyphenols, twice or 2.5 times more the average. So this is strong. So again, think of, this could be sort of almost on the nutraceutical side, where now you're taking a little bit of olive oil in the morning as a supplement. But this kind, or even more, yes. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've used it on food. Barrel-aged feta cheese with this on top. Steak too. So this is, the Tuscan variety, Lecchino, for example, very, very similar to this, not as bitter. Put it on a Florentine steak. This one steak, it will just take it to a different level. That's it. No pepper, no salt, just this. Yeah. So the question is, where do you buy these? The first two, the Spanish and the Italian, there's a couple of outlets that you can buy them online. They're now waiting for their harvest, and you can actually reserve what you like. One is Olive Oil Lovers, one word. And then the other one is Olio 2 with the number 2 Go, but that's only Italian. The Olive Oil Lovers has from anywhere. They have this one too, but you can buy this directly from Laconico. That's the name of the brand. Laconico.com. No, they ship it from Greece. They bottle it here. Yeah, in Virginia. They're in Manassas, Virginia. And if you're driving down there, they have a nice tasting room with all their oils, olives, and everything. So open to the public. So what was your favorite oil? Like, again, don't ask me what my favorite oil is, because I can tell you it depends on what I'm eating. So at any given time, I have 7 or 8 oils open in my kitchen. So what did you like? I mean, obviously you have to think an everyday use oil is different than a special meal oil, right? Picual, okay, yeah. That's a mainstream, in Spain, you use that a lot. Like, I mean, this would be for a nice salad, feta cheese, a nice summer tomato. Yes?
There was a progression from the number 1, 2, and 3, from light to heavy.
Yes.
And that texture, what creates that?
So the difference in the profile is the phenols. Because phenols give the flavor and the spiciness, the pungency of the oil. So the more, this one, I don't know what they tested for in terms of number, but I would bet this is 2,000 milligrams per kilogram. So that bitterness and that chlorophyll, fresh olive is from that oleocanthal that's so strong. Chlorophyll. I smelled chlorophyll and the olive, if I'm chewing the olive. Yes?
If you're doing your daily tablespoon in the morning of olive oil,
This is the one I would do. Yeah, yeah. This is the one shot in the morning of this. Yes. I've been doing it for 9 years. I have not taken any non-steroidal anti-inflammatory since then. So, okay, so that's the one question on that sheet. We said the number 1 producing country is Spain. The number 1 consuming country is? Nope. Greece. So take a guess what the US is consuming. The US consumes 1 liter per person per year. Guess what Yale is consuming? 6. Italy and Spain are about 8 to 10, depends on the last few years it's gone down because of the price. Greece has been consuming 18 to 22 liters per person per year. So I go through a liter every 2 weeks. I don't use any fat in my kitchen other than oil. And when I started doing this, I thought people were teasing me by asking me, what oil do you use? I said, is there any other? Then I realized, yes, there are others. But I use it on everything. To bake, to drizzle, to fry, raw. So there's another myth. I'm sure you've heard you cannot fry with olive oil. Myth. What's the smoke point of olive oil, you think? Yes, 410. Yeah, I did? Okay. So every oil you heat is going to smoke at some point, especially if you forget it on the stove. But who cooks at 410 degrees? If you look at the middle of your pan on high, maybe 280, 300. Bake at 350, use olive oil. So, and actually it was done scientifically. A paper was published out of a group of Australia. They took all the different oils, extra virgin, virgin, canola, seed oils, anything you wanted, exposed it for heat for 1 hour, 3 hours, 6 hours. Over time, the smoke point is not what we should worry about when it comes to health. It's the polar compounds that are released. Any oil will release polar compounds that are not good for your health. They're circulating. You have to figure out how to get them out of your system. So extra virgin olive oil had the lowest proportion of polar compounds released after 6 hours, 8 hours, compared to any other oil. So if somebody tells you, I'm not going to fry with olive oil, watch me. And you can use it again. So I fry fries, right, in olive oil. Save it. You can use it the next day. It loses its polyphenols because obviously you're exposing it to heat, but better than a seed oil that you applied so much heat to get from that kernel to get some oil. It's pricey, yes, but I tell people it's an investment for your health. And actually, it's been shown that it helps. So if you, especially for me, I've noticed, and others who are doing this, an olive oil, a tablespoon of olive oil in the morning sets you up, and you're not hungry right away. So it takes me a couple of hours to have breakfast, because now I feel, okay, it's calorie dense, we know that, but it's good calories. Yeah? No, you're not hungry. So, all right, questions on the tasting, on the oils, anything you want. And then we'll move next door, and then I'll say a few words maybe while you're eating. I'll have some slides to show the science behind it, the data. Since we're science and society, right? What better way to combine this? Yes, I saw. What's that? I do 1 shot, which is about 1 tablespoon. It's easier in a little glass. So I have that first. Then, and so the controversy at the beginning was you're exposing your GI system to an acidic thing or something that was not true. Actually, a study, it was a group out of France, from Spain. A nutrition group out of Spain did a study to show that actually you're revving up your GI system to be ready to absorb the nutrients you consume later. It hasn't bothered me at all. I mean, I've been doing this from 9 years now. So tablespoon is fine. So if you think about it, a tablespoon is about, let's say, 20 cc's, right? So if you do 20 cc's a day, you're looking at 7 liters a year. I don't care if you drink it, put it on your salad. If you do 1 tablespoon a day, you're at 7 liters, right? Before coffee. So I take my shot, I get ready, I have my double shot espresso, and I'm set until 11. But try, if you get a chance to try the Oleato, I think they're pulling it out now from Starbucks. It's actually impressive they've been able to put the two together. Yes, yeah, Oleato, and they had hot and some cold beverages that have olive oil. But they stopped. I think they're pulling it because there's not a lot of... No, my HDL is 85, the last time I checked, and my LDL was like 130. It's been stable. I mean, I've always had decent, but this is definitely helping. Actually, I have slides to show the data. It helps with, it improves your HDL and reduces your LDL in a linear fashion, very quickly. So there's a lot of data and evidence behind this, not human health, but also planetary health. So we'll see some slides. And what I'll do, I'll say a few things and we'll play the slides. You can see, you know, there. Yeah. Yes?
So if you, I saw that it's good for inflammation. So let's say you have inflammation already, and
Yeah.
it helps to reverse
Yes.
inflammation.
So these polyphenols, the main, at least the first things that were identified was the anti-inflammatory capacity of olive oil.
Like intestinal.
Anything inflammation. So if you take a tablespoon of olive oil, it's the equivalent of a quarter of a dose of Advil. It's not going to get your headache away if you chug down olive oil, but in the long term, inflammation we know is the root cause of a lot of conditions, whether it's cardiovascular, vascular, any inflammation. So that's the first thing, anti-inflammatory capacity. Published papers over and over and over to show that. And now, you know, we're seeing, because that's what the beginning of the science on olive oil goes back to Ansel Keys, a physician from Minneapolis, who said, I'm going to look at the 7 countries in the world. Why is their longevity so much better than others? Classic, and I have a picture of it, classic slide. He plotted the mortality of men in these 7 parts of the world. He noticed that the percent of calories of men in Crete were 40%. So 40% of their calories were coming from fat. Same thing in Finland. 40% of their calorie intake was from fat. The mortality in Crete was barely 1 per 10,000 per year. Mortality in Finland was 600. He said something's happening here. Proportion is the same, difference was olive oil. So that opened the floodgates of why is this thing? Is it by itself? I don't think. It's in combination with the other foods you're eating. And actually there's a lot of data to show, again, going back to the frying, if you fry your veggies in olive oil, not only you're getting the benefit from the olive oil, but you're actually synergizing, and the release of the phytonutrients from the veggies is amplified. Yes?
Would you fry fish in olive oil?
Absolutely.
And then reuse it?
Well, I mean, if you're going to fry fish again, yes. I wouldn't use it to fry something else. But so I have my, especially if I fry fries, you know, here's my olive oil for fries. Yes? To store olives? Well, if you're going to consume it quickly, I wouldn't waste the olive oil. But it preserves it longer, obviously. Yeah. There's in Spain, 2 years ago, I was in another part of Spain, La Mancha, which is now devastated by all the flooding. They took us to a cheese factory. They had manchego in cubes covered in olive oil. And they had it the 12-month, the 24-month. I mean, every single cheese was amazing. The 36-month, it was fire. It was in that for 36 months. No, the cheese. When you take the cheese out, it had the olive oil or everything absorbed and the cheese. Yeah. Yes.
Tell me about becoming an olive oil sommelier.
How much time do we have? So in 2017, I was always interested in wine and food, right? Yes, that's my DNA makes me do that. So I looked into becoming a wine sommelier, and I did a couple classes online, but then it had me go to London for a week. I said, at that time, I didn't have time to do that. Working 2 jobs, 3 little kids, I said, forget it. So then all of a sudden, I started getting this, get trained to be a sommelier in olive oil. I'm like, that's interesting. I knew I was doing some stuff like this since 2006. We started doing some Mediterranean food activity through the Hellenic Studies program, and a little bit with Yale Hospitality. And I said, well, that would be interesting. So I went and got trained. There's one of the schools in New York They brought trainees from Italy, Spain, Argentina, and for 1 week I went there and I said, okay, this is good. And you go through a lot of the technical training, but it's one of those things you have to continue tasting. So every time I get a fresh, this is the season. Now I'm going to start getting all the fresh oil, and I go through the tasting by myself and compare notes with the owner or whoever I bought the oil with other people. Just like wine, you have to keep tasting it. But it gives you a different appreciation for the oil, and you learn year after year, oh, last year it was like this year it changed, what happened? Because it's, unlike wine, once you press, there's nothing you can do. It is what it is. You can't play with it to get it better or over time. What you get out of that tree and you press is what you get in the bottle. But it's been a fascinating journey to learn on that side, but also tied with this. I was the only one who had some science background in there. Most of the people were either in the industry, wanted to learn how to do that. The best school right now to do this is in Jaén, University of Jaén. You can choose to do a month or a whole semester. The whole semester you go to the Grove. It's from Grove to bottle. You learn everything. You stay there in residence for 3 months. At some point I'll do it. There's another one in Italy, pretty good one, and another one in Spain. So there's 3 really good schools that you can get this kind of training. But the New York one, now they're taking it to London the last couple of years to have more people train. But it's good. I think the more people appreciate this, the more they're going to ask for it. And from restaurants and chefs and all that. So, and I am very fortunate that I work with Yale Hospitality here to do all this work. Because without that platform, you cannot, what are you going to do? On my own, go around and gives me the opportunity to do this kind of stuff. Yes?
Obviously, nothing is ever added to the olive oil. Like it's kept.
Yes.
So what is your take on, I've had peppercorns in olive oil and rosemary, things like that. What is your take?
I don't like that. I'd rather put those on my own, on my food. To me, the biggest issue is anytime you introduce anything in the oil, you run the risk of introducing either a microorganism or increasing the risk of oxidation, or anything you add to it. Now, what people are starting to do now is co-mill. So, because most of these oils are, here's my olive oil, I'm going to infuse it with, call it whatever you want. But people now are putting, let's say, rosemary and milling it while they're milling the olives. Of course, that means you have to clean the machines very well before you do the next batch. And if you're a company, if you're a mill and you're serving 5 different producers, you can't do that because it stops your process. But if you have your own and you say, okay, this little mill, I'm going to do my co-milling, and I've tasted oil like this with rosemary, because again, the milling process, it adds to the synergy between what you're extracting from the oil and the extraction of the oil from the herb. And that is not additive, definitely. I mean, when I tasted oil that was co-milled, fresh oil in September 2 years ago with their own rosemary from their own grove, it was, holy moly, this is amazing food. But I try not to unless I know how they did it. But from a practical standpoint for a mill, it delays and especially during the harvest season, you have to keep going with the olives. Questions? So yeah.
2 questions.
Yeah.
One, so olive trees are destructible, basically?
They're what?
Destructible.
Yes.
Basically. And which one is the oldest? You have to.
So there's a tree in Crete, in a village in Crete, that's 2,000 years old. They carbon measured it. And there's one in Italy. I can't remember what part of Italy. I think it's in Puglia, down south. They can produce forever. They don't need a lot of care. Once they are by 5-6 years old, they give you a first crop. And once they're there, the maintenance is minimal. So at the end of the season, if you look at these trees, when harvest is done, they clean it up, and because what you want to do, expose the tree to sunlight. So they kind of fillet open them as they clean the branches. Not a lot here. You see, it's all wild. There's no, you don't have to have it clean because you actually want the soil to be part of that ecosystem that helps the tree. And I've tasted oil from 800-year-old trees.
And the second question is, does it grow in the States?
It does. So in the States, most of it is in California, the northern part of California. The production in California supports about 5% of the consumption in the US. Most of it is imported. Most of it from Spain, Italy, some from Greece. Tunisia now is importing, we're importing a lot of oil from Tunisia, Morocco. And those are countries that are coming up strong because of the temperature, the weather. They have vast areas where they can plant. In California, I don't think it's going to go any more than maybe 10% because they're competing with wine. But what's happening recently because of the water shortage, a lot of people are taking, some companies are taking the almond trees that are very water intensive and planting olive trees. Oregon started producing some now. There's a couple of groves in Texas, believe it or not. Georgia. Yeah. I mean, it's one of those, climate change has something to do with that because I would never, 20 years ago, I would never expect Oregon to be produced because it's very wet. You want, yes, you want water, but you want dry season. You cannot harvest. So right when I was in Florence, the reason they were not harvesting because it rained 2 days before I was there. It has to dry. The tree has to be very dry. The fruit has to be very dry because if you harvest it and there's some moisture, you put it in the mill. But it can, it can last forever. You can produce olive oil from it. And what happens is they get older, they have these branches and it might be hollow in the middle and you have this thing around. Yeah, beautiful tree. Yeah. Yeah, yes. Yes. All right.
This might sound dumb, but what's your favorite olive oil that you've ever tasted?
Oh, good question. Okay. Tre Colonne in a little village in Puglia, and I'll tell you why. So this guy, his dad started it, and then he took over, and then he has his 2 kids running with him, 3 columns. That's why he called it Tre Colonne. So I was there in 2017 down in Puglia, which, by the way, I did not know at the time that is the breadbasket of Italy. People think it's Tuscany, Umbria. No, it's Puglia. So we go to the, harvest just finished. They had it in the tank. So one of my favorite varieties is Coratina. Coratina is a variety mostly south. So he had a good Coratina. But he said, try this one. It's not as common, but you might like it. So he takes it out of the tank, gives me, he's standing where you are. He puts out the cup in front of me, and I could smell it from there. I said, what is this? He's like, oh, this is our native cultivar here. And I said, don't tell me what it is. I'm just going to taste it and sort of appreciate it. I get it, I smell it, I taste it. It reminded me of when I was your age, and I was hanging out with my dad's mom, and she used to cook for me on Saturdays when my parents would drop me off. And she would always grow this little, whatever it was seed that she was planting, and then the tendrils would grow. Like we did it as an experiment, you put these little sprouts, yeah, whatever. And I remember very vividly, she would always grow fava beans. And the tendril, put it in the salad. So when I tasted that olive oil, I said, this oil just brought me back 40-something years. He's like, why? I said, because it smells like, and it tastes like fava. He's like, well, the name of the variety is favalosa. Because, and they use it exclusively for their fava bean soup. Wow. So anywhere I see that oil now, I'll know it.
What's the name? We got it.
Favolosa, Tre Colonne. So that's why I said before, I try when I taste those to create a memory. You'll never forget it. When I was doing my training, no, actually the year later, they invited us to sit on a competition that they were doing just to learn how the professional panelists do it. So all of a sudden, I'm sitting in a table with 2 Greeks, 3 Italians, 2 Spanish. So they were all tasting the oils. All of a sudden, they said, hold on. I'm like, what? Okay. The guy says, I'm tasting this oil. it might be tainted with other oils. I'm like, okay, so I smell it. Rosemary. I'm like, wow. So they take it back to test it, because if it's infused with, that doesn't qualify, right? Disqualify right away. So they come back, nope, pure olive oil. Then the Italian guy who's the master taster comes to our table and says, I'll give you a lecture about this. I can tell you where this is coming from. There's a part, it's in Umbria. This producer, he did not know, but then after the fact he told us, this producer, his grove is covered with lavender. And when he harvests, the night before, they cut the lavender. So then they bring the olives to the mill, and it gets that. I said, whoa. I mean, it was so obvious. And he said, no, that's not infused. This is why you get that. So now if I smell that oil again, taste it, I'll know where it's coming from. So, yeah. So, thank you.